Hi, I'm Weapon XOXO Gossip Girl, Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. You know, I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do is pretty weird, but generally good. Logan is the best there is of the Wolverine films, and what they did was usually pretty bad. Logan, however, I give 6 claws up. This latest installment of the Wolverine films promised to be darker than all of the other shittier films, and it definitely delivered, but what they may have meant by darker was actually just good story. The announcement came of a final Wolverine film starring Hugh Jackman in his 17th year of playing the character. Also, the 17th year that Patrick Stewart portrayed Charles Xavier. Actually longer than he portrayed Jean-Luc Picard in film also. Anyway, the announcement came that they'd tell the story of an older Wolverine, an old man Logan. Fans had hoped for an adaptation of Old Man Logan, a story by Mark Millar, in which a very old Wolverine had killed all the X-Men some years ago, and now 100 years later, lived in a farmstead with his family. And the world had been taken over by supervillains, and he and an incredibly old Hawkeye decided to set out on a road trip to discover the real America and kill Red Skull once and for all. But what fans got was a markedly different story. It had to be, since the original had, the Hulk, Black Bolt, Red Skull, Venom Tyrannosaurus, Spider-Man's daughter, and, well, all of them are actually owned by Marvel or Sony, and so it makes it a little difficult. But what they ended up making was absolutely worth it. It's the tale of Logan discovering that he's got a clone daughter, Laura Kinney, X-23.
No.
And in the comics, she's the current Wolverine, and badass as all hell. They cross country with Charles Xavier, who happens to be haunted by something that he did in the past, a terrible mistake that he made with the X-Men. Incredibly well-realized adaptations of some long-standing Wolverine characters end up making appearances like Donald Pierce of the Reavers, Caliban, and most importantly, and maybe my favorite, is Albert, the android Wolverine. What's notable, though, about the story is how unsuperhero-y all of it is. It's actually just a modern American Western. It's a sad tale of revenge and redemption, a man who's in his last days of his life is trying to cement a legacy for himself and the man that saved him from himself, Charles Xavier. It's kind of like The Shootist, but with claws. So, Wolverine's a Western now. So this begs the question, what's the future of superhero film? We're fast approaching a period of time where all of the major superhero franchises casts are going to have to change, or they've already changed, and almost all of the major stories that you could probably think of needing to be told have either been told or are going to be. Good superhero film isn't simply a genre unto itself. The characters are a palimpsest that you can put over virtually any genre film, and probably should, as long as you're telling a good story. So I feel like an R rating, like case in point Suicide Squad, or the dedication to retelling an exact story in an exact way that it's already been done in comics, like in Watchmen, or maybe the numbers of characters that you have to try and pack into one film, like in Batman Superman, or the origin story being retold again and again and again and again, like in Green Lantern and Spider-Man. Those things might be mistakes. The key to creating good comics and good movies is exactly the same. Clearly define and discover your character. Know what they would do, and more importantly, what would they never ever do, and then find out what do they want. Then put them in a place where what they want is denied to them by a villain that wants them to do what they would never ever do. This isn't a secret, this is how you tell a good story. So just tell me a good story, and use characters from comics. That's it! Logan gets this right. Tons of history and the history of the X-Men and Wolverine franchises are thrown, and retcon may be completely out of the window. My favorite X-Men movies are the ones that did this, like First Class. If this bothers you, then maybe you don't really like good stories as much as you like being pandered to. It has its problems, but they're few. Most of the characters are pretty well realized, they have purpose, most of the plot stays out of the way of the story itself. It's sad, it's sweet, and it's a sincerely good ending to one of the longest and best elapsed cinematic portrayals of a single character by any single actor. The most famous tales of demigods and great kings are often those of their deaths. Many times those stories end up being contradictory to the rest of their tales. Arthur, Hercules, Samson, Robin Hood, Thor, Superman, Wolverine. Logan has cemented itself as a piece of cinema and a great part of a literary tradition. You can hardly ask for a better Wolverine or a better X-Men film.